Hey everyone, and welcome back. Now today we're going to be talking about Bitcoin and what I think we could see potentially happening to Bitcoin within the next couple of months. We have two indicators that historically have had 100% accuracy showing Bitcoin mooning over the next couple of months because we are historically very, very far behind what we have seen previously from these indicators and relative to Bitcoin's price. So if we are to kind of keep this trend going, we're probably going to need to see some pretty ridiculous and crazy movement given what we've seen kind of coming out of just things and updates and financial events and political events and a lot of that type of stuff. It's shaping up like it could be possible. I still think it could be maybe a little bit challenging or a little bit of a tall task to get to. We're going to talk a little bit about that. Things looking pretty interesting on the chart. So I just want to talk a little bit about what we need to see out of Bitcoin to potentially see some of those numbers. The numbers that we're looking at are somewhere around, I think it's like $257,000 if I remember correctly. So like 2.5x from where we are now, which would be wild. But again, I think it's potentially possible. We're going to take a look at what that could potentially mean. Before we do that, though, let's take a quick look at crypto bubbles. We can see a really, really strong day in the market. Only a handful of red bubbles here and there. A lot of the things that we talk about fairly consistently here. ICP up just a tiny bit. Solana up about 10%, which is really good. Virtual's up over 20%. Jasmine up about 5%. We can actually see AI overall doing pretty well. We can see virtuals, fetch, Tau, AI16Z, a lot of these, we got Graph down here. A lot of these looking pretty good. Render as well. But we can see Bitcoin up 4.4% on the day. So a pretty nice move up for the upside for Bitcoin. If we do look at the week, we can see Bitcoin up almost 10%. And on the week, it's actually a lot more mixed than what we're seeing on the day. And so we can see that the Bitcoin's strong move to the upside is I would say outperforming a lot of the rest of the market. Obviously, we have a couple here and there that are doing better. Obviously, Solana, we've seen some really, really strong moves out of. But relative to kind of, I would say, the market average, Bitcoin doing really quite well, especially given that it's such a large market cap. Obviously, 9%, a 9% move on Bitcoin is, maybe equivalent to like all the rest of this combined. It's a lot of money that we've got moving into Bitcoin. So looking at the Bitcoin price, we can see a couple of interesting things. Let's actually load this up to full screen and see a couple of different stuff here. So we are kind of holding this upper trend line here, which is, it's looking pretty good. We did see that liquidation event that kind of broke that momentarily, but again, we did not close outside of this, so we haven't broken that yet. We've been working through kind of multiples of these different like liquidity zones. We did kind of make that pump up through here. Potentially we came back down, kind of tested this liquidity zone. Obviously this liquidation wick tested this liquidity zone. We were kind of bouncing in and around it prior to that. Now we have basically moved straight up through. We kind of sat around in this liquidity zone for a couple of days. We did actually make runs to new all-time highs, but very quickly came back down. And now we have broken and closed out of this liquidity zone. So it could be that maybe we potentially are going to be seeing some new all-time highs and a continued run to the upside. But again, we did see this happen momentarily here, and then we saw a really aggressive move to the downside. So, that is always possible. Maybe there's even just the possibility that maybe we return to this like ascending trend line here, maybe take a bounce off of that and take another run at all-time highs. Hard to say for sure, but we can see, actually, let's extend out this box a little bit. We can see, still above this liquidity zone that we have seen recently. So we'll have to see how it goes for sure. We can see on RSI, though, we are looking decent. We're definitely sitting in strong, not quite to overbought yet, though. So, maybe this kind of lends support to the fact that we could maybe recover, get into like more of the average territory. But given that we aren't overbought, a continued move to the upside still very much is in the cards. If we add in Bollinger Bands here, we can see, though, we are sitting rather towards the top end of this Bollinger Band. So, we needed this kind of mean line to pull up a little bit. Currently, it's only at about 99,000, and we're sitting up here at about 105.5, or no, close to 106 actually. I just can't read. And then the upper trend line here is at 107. So definitely very, very close to that upper trend line. Again, as we know with Bollinger Bands, when we pull out, as we've seen multiple times here, it's almost immediately back into the Bollinger Band zone. So if we were to, this kind of lends to the argument that maybe we can't see too much of at least a sustained move to the upside, just because there isn't too far to go with the Bollinger Bands. This obviously, as we continue to see strong price movement to the upside, this Bollinger Band will continue to move up, and that'll give us some more space and some room to run. Again, potentially leading to or supporting the argument that we could see a dip back into this liquidity zone and maybe ideally a bounce off of this ascending trend line that we have been following basically since January 9th is what it's looking like. So a little bit of some history here to support that. So if you are looking looking to trade this type of Bitcoin price movement, or maybe you saw the 35% Solana gains, things like that. I have actually done really quite well on Solana lately. I actually just had a over 150% Solana play today. So a lot of great movements going on there. If you are wanting to trade any of that, you can feel free to use the link in the description for BTCC. They are still doing that 10% bonus on first time deposits. Really, really good deal. Obviously free money is great. I love free money. I'm sure you love free money as well. This is also in addition to the extra bonuses of up to $10,055 per user. So BTCC throwing a whole bunch of money at you to trade with them if that is something you are interested in. They also have been around for 13 years, so definitely got a long and a good track record in the space. 300 plus crypto futures, a ton of leverage options. Again, I would be careful using anything too high leverage. I strongly discourage it just because it's basically like tantamount to gambling if you ask me. But again, maybe you have a strategy or something that you do there. Just use it at your own risk. I usually tend to go much lower leverage just because it gives me some room to play and kind of set closer to like key support and resistance levels is mainly how I play that. Also, no VPN or KYC necessary if that is something that's important to you. So like I said, just feel free to check the link in the description below if that is something that you are interested in. Really, really good deal here with basically getting 10% free money on anything that you deposit. So moving on, I want to take a look at these indicators that we've seen previously that have never been wrong. We're dealing with 100% accuracy here. And so we have not currently broken these. I mean, we'll get to that in a second, but we currently have not broken these maybe in this cycle. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about that. And so as we can see, the gold line here is Bitcoin price. This like bluish line is stock to flow, and then this greenish line is stock to income. Theoretically, when we see Bitcoin's kind of like blow off top, or we see the highs of the cycle, it has broken above both the stock to income and stock to flow. As we can see where price is right now, if we get close, we can see price right now 104-ish. I don't think this is like most currently up to date, but we can see that stock to income is currently sitting at 172,000 and stock to flow sitting at about 203,000. So theoretically, we've got a really long way to go before we break above the stock to flow and stock to income trend lines, which again, we have seen at every point in the past. So one of two things is going to happen. We're either going to see a ridiculous move to the upside, because we can see on both stock to flow and stock to income, they're going like very, very vertical here. So if we look even just by the, like, let's see the end of 2024, the end of 2025, excuse me, I'm forgetting the year already. If we go to the end of 2025, we can see that these numbers would be 585,000 on stock to flow and 343,000 on stock to income. So some pretty strong moves to the upside there. We are just barely above the power law as well, which usually what we've seen in the past is we come well above the power law. So, maybe lending to the argument that we could see some pretty ridiculous moves to the upside off of Bitcoin as well. Although we have to keep in mind that, Bitcoin is over a $2 trillion asset at this point. So moving this type of volume is going to require a ridiculous amount of money coming in, something that I think probably could only be facilitated by essentially world governments getting involved in Bitcoin and buying up as much as they can. I'm pretty sure that's probably about the only thing that we could see that would move Bitcoin at this type of magnitude. So I'm prepared for the fact that like we may actually break, like this could be the cycle where things are different, and this time is different, and we don't actually break the stock to flow or stock to income line. We did if we actually zoom in, and this is why I kind of said like kind of, sort of, because if we look, we can see right here back in March 14th of 2024, we did actually break above both stock to income and stock to flow. We did not break above the power law at that point in time, which again, historically in the past, Bitcoin price has been above just all of them. So that's one that we haven't seen as far as power law has been concerned. And then if we go to like the halving, I think the halving happens somewhere along here. We are still technically above, I guess not stock to flow potentially, but definitely stock to income. So, we are seeing here, I think it might have been April 20th. It might have even been a little bit before that, but we can see price and stock to flow. It does look like stock to flow, we haven't actually been above that this cycle so far. So something to consider, we maybe could have, had an early peak if we are looking at like the stock to flow. But again, we've already progressed above that in terms of price. And usually this predicts the tops for the cycle, which obviously has not been true. So it's hard to say exactly what's going on here and what we could potentially see. But as I mentioned in the video, if we look at the end of March here, we could be seeing, this is kind of where stock to flow and stock to income get the closest from what it seems, and they're about $1,000 or about $1,500 off at this point. This puts Bitcoin at $292,000 and $294,000 respectively. So if it were to breach essentially these like trend lines that we have been seeing, we would need to see Bitcoin essentially hit 300,000 by the end of March, which would be wild. That's a 3x in about 2 months time. I think I don't see that happening. So in my opinion, I think this time is probably the time that it's different. I know people usually always get wrecked saying that, but I feel somewhat comfortable and somewhat confident showing that could be the case here, just because that's a lot of money. I mean, that would be putting Bitcoin at a $6 trillion asset, and essentially $4 trillion coming into Bitcoin in the span of 2 months. That seems a little bit of a reach, in my opinion. Again, crazier things have happened. Anything can happen just because it is crypto, but this could be the time where it is different, and we do not see price breaking out of the stock to income and stock to flow like we have seen at every previous cycle in the past. So again, there's kind of two ways to look at this. One way is this time is different. We're not going to be breaking there, at which point, maybe we're looking to kind of stay closer to this power law. And then at that case, that it would signal lower highs than what we've seen previously. And maybe we even get up into like the, 160s, 180s, but even if we get there, we're still not going to be catching the stock to flow, because even if we were to teleport to 160 today, we still would not hit either of those. Now, moving on to Bitcoin dominance, what we can see is we had some pretty interesting price action forming here. Again, consolidating here on the Bitcoin dominance chart. We have seen a break to the upside, which could indicate that we do potentially see a pretty aggressive run on Bitcoin and maybe even altcoins as well. But essentially, Bitcoin is going to outpace the gain of altcoins, because we have seen that kind of wedge potentially be broken out of. We have broken out and closed above this descending trend line that we did see here. We now have multiple candles outside of this descending trend line. So, potentially we break out. Maybe we reach new highs for Bitcoin dominance. If we did, I think this type of thing is exactly what we would need to see if we were to see something like this happen, where we see Bitcoin explode up into, $2, $4, $5, $6 trillion to hit these types of numbers. We would need to see that. And then unless we also see alts keep pace, that would see Bitcoin dominance go to probably 70%, maybe even 75%, maybe even 80%. We could see Bitcoin dominance going really, really, really ridiculously high. And then potentially we would start to see Bitcoin dominance fall down as more of the altcoin markets and alt season starts to take over. But pretty interesting formation that we are seeing here that could potentially lend to the argument that we do see a little bit more of an aggressive move to the upside on Bitcoin. Again, no guarantees in life for sure, but things looking overall pretty good, I would say. I'm very pleased with where Bitcoin is sitting. Like I said, I'm not sure that we are going to hit that stock to flow or that stock to income level. This would be the first cycle that we don't. But I don't know, just seeing essentially 3x needed by the end of March, that seems like a pretty tall task. But history is on our side, and also the Bitcoin dominance could potentially be on our side when adding to the argument that maybe we do see that. So a lot of different things going on in the crypto market. Anything can happen. I try to kind of stay very loose and very flexible in terms of my ideologies of what I think is going to happen. Currently, I think, like I said, I think a 3x is a little bit out of reach, but maybe we see some things happening within the next 2, 3, 4 weeks that could change that, and then maybe we see some just absolutely stunning moves to the upside for Bitcoin. Anything is possible. Hopefully you did find the information in this video useful as we go through and discuss kind of some of the possible outcomes within the crypto market. If you did, please do give me a like and a subscribe, because it really, really does help me out. Also, I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on what you think about, can we hit 300,000? Are we going to kind of hold form to what we've seen in the past and break that stock to income and stock to flow line? Is this time different? Are we not going to hit that? I'd love to hear all your guys' feedback and your comments there. I do try to read and respond to all of my comments. So if you have anything that you want me to see, that'd be a really great way to do that. Thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next one.